everybody. Thank you for joining me. Let me mute that music. And I want to welcome you. I'm coming to you from Florida. Thank you for joining me on this special event. For all our veterans out there, happy Veterans Day. And as many of you know, I am the producer director of the documentary film, The Borinqueneers, the only Hispanic segregated unit in Army history, nicknamed the Borinqueneers. And today, we're going to, you're going to need your calculators, okay? Because we're offering a giveaway challenge for a free copy of our award-winning book, The Borinqueneers, A Visual History of the 65th Infantry Regiment, signed by me, the author. And if you already have the book, you can give it as a gift, or you can choose any other products from our store of an equal value. So in order to win, you need to write down the years served by all of our military retirees, both Borinqueneers and non-Borinqueneers, which are marked in blue throughout this presentation. All the numbers marked in blue, and I will be showing you an example in a minute. And then total those years up at the end. But wait for my signal at the end to send me a comment with the total years served and your name. And the first accurate number will be the winner. So I think all of you will be surprised to learn what that final number will be. So get your calculators ready and good luck. Now, throughout this event, you can send your comments and I will read some of them throughout, okay? But last year, our first Facebook Live event was honoring your Borinqueneer veteran, which was a great success. And for those of you who missed it, you can view it on our YouTube channel. But this year, our theme is a legacy of military service, a legacy of family service. Well, you will learn about the deep connection to military service by many Borinqueneer families. In my database, I discovered that about 30% of them made the military their careers, meaning they served 20 years or more. Many served because they loved the military and or for financial reasons. They were able to provide comfortable lives for their families. But the book, El 65 en Revista, written by Antonio Padron, claimed that, quote, when the 65th was dissolved, it had reached a milestone that will hardly ever be surpassed, its number of retired members. Today, it is the largest in the Army, unquote. Now, I don't know if that's true, but today you're going to hear about many of these Borinqueneers and their families. If the name under the photo is in red, it means they were Borinqueneers. And here's my disclaimer. The information provided here today is to the best of my knowledge. So if there are any errors, please let me know so I can correct them. First, I want to start to acknowledge the veterans in my family. My father, Rodolfo Figueroa Montalvo, served during the Korean War in Panama with the 33rd Infantry Regiment. My uncle-in-law, Benny Roldan, served in the Korean War. Vietnam veterans in my family include Uncle Tony, a Marine who received the Purple Heart. And in the Army were my Uncle Gilberto, a former stepfather, Pedro Pavon, and a former brother-in-law, Joseph Hernandez. Also serving was my brother-in-law, retired First Sergeant Agapito Rivera, retired from the Marines with 22 years of service. Now you can note the blue, the 22 years marked in blue, which you should start adding up with your calculator. My cousin Roberto Pagan served in the Air Force, and my cousin-in-law, Ray Calderon, a Desert Storm veteran with 21 years of active service, another figure marked in blue. So there are Borinqueneers in my family that include a paternal uncle, retired Sergeant Anselmo Figueroa Montalvo, who served for 20 years, and my mother's cousin, another Gilberto Zuley, who was wounded in Korea. I am very proud of my family's service. But we are going to start from the very beginning. Here is a short video of Borinqueneer and Korean War veteran, the gentleman on the right, Staff Sergeant Ramon Torres Villafañe, who passed away in 2018, but he's talking about his father in the short video of one of the original Borinqueneers, Sergeant Ramon Torres Ramirez.
First of all, not only I am very proud to serve my country, but I'm also proud to have my father serve the country for 30 years. And let me tell you how it all started. When the American Army invaded Puerto Rico, at the town of Huánica, went to the next town, little town, by the name of Yauco. And this is where my father was born, in Yauco, Puerto Rico. And the United States Army went to the town and left. And when they left, my grandmother and my aunt, my father's sister, were looking for my father, for him. They could find him. And nowhere around town. Nobody knew what his whereabouts. They thought the American Army killed him or destroyed him or disappeared. That was in 1898. Well, a year passed, over a year. My father returned home. And all dressed up in the American uniform, well, fed and dressed. My grandmother was happy to see him. And also happy that he had a steady job now. And tired of his whereabouts. So he was part of the beginning of what they used to call a battalion of Puerto Rican volunteers, which many, I don't know how many were. But my father was one of the founders of this battalion, which later became the United States 65th Infantry Regiment, which I served proudly, and I'm proud to have served with.
So that was Ramon Torres Villafañe and the story of how his father became a Borinqueneer, which is very funny. But many of our early Borinqueneers were siblings. There we go. The Emanueli brothers were from Ponce and were commissioned as officers in the Puerto Rico Regiment of Infantry. Major Lewis received a medical retirement after 15 years of service, and there are some figures you will see that are less than 20 years, but if they're marked in blue, add them. Before Felix became an officer, he studied law at Columbia University and was a lawyer. He retired as a colonel with 37 years of service. His son and grandson also retired from the military. And then we also have the Hostos brothers, born in the Dominican Republic, were sons of a famous Puerto Rican, Eugenio Maria de Hostos, educator and Puerto Rican independence advocate. They were officers in the early Puerto Rico Regiment of Infantry. Eugenio's career included work for the Army Intelligence Service in Colombia, Guatemala, and Panama to identify German activities there during World War I. And Adolfo went on to become the official historian of Puerto Rico from 1936 to 1950. Early pioneer officers, again, are the three Lopez Anton Giorgi brothers from San Germán, who served in the early 65th. And here we also have the Nadal family. And they, First Lieutenant Blas Nadal on the upper left was the first Puerto Rican officer commissioned in 1899. And sadly, he died 2 years later of an illness, but that did not deter his other brothers from serving. Jaime, Urbino, and Germán all served during World War I. In this case, we have the 32-year service of their original Borinqueneer father on the upper left, retired Sergeant First Class Manuel Reyes Silva, inspired his 4 sons to serve during World War II and the Korean War. the Reyes Castañera brothers, Roberto, Carlos, William, and Raúl. Raúl passed away in 2022, but in this recorded video, he shares what it was like growing up.
Reyes Castañera, el viejo mío, cuando en el 1902 por ahí fueron las primeras tropas puertorriqueñas y él fue de los primeros que vino de allá de un campo de Puerto Rico a ingresar a Puerto Rico. Él tenía como 20 años y tuvo desde los 20 años hasta los 54 años, tuvo 33 años, éramos 5 hermanos. Yo nací en Fort Brooke y me crié allí con las tropas del viejo 65 para allá, para el año 1930. Ya mi viejo era sargento. Mi viejo ya había regresado de Panamá, estuvo en Panamá como 4 años durante la Primera Guerra Mundial. Entonces lo trasladaron a Fort Brooke. Tengo muchas memorias de cuando yo era pequeño, cuando yo corría por el morro, cuando se murió mi madre, que se murió para allá para el 33, mi padre era soldado, entonces yo me quedaba con el viejo mío, con el padre mío allá en los cuarteles de Valleja y dormía hasta con él y los soldados de la compañía de mi padre me cogieron como mascota, así que yo no salía de allí jugando con mi hermano William y me sentía orgulloso cada vez que los veía practicar cuando iban a paradas, especialmente paradas que eran orgullosos y había una precisión tremenda. Parecían cadetes de West Point y la banda del 65. Me acuerdo que el que la dirigía era un hombre, el que llevaba la batuta medía como 6'5", era bien alto. Y era tremendo, y la banda del 65 era una de las mejores bandas que yo he visto. En mi casa se dieron muchos bailes y venían parte de la banda a tocar a mi casa. Y mi viejo, como era sargento, mi casa siempre estaba llena de soldados, de que se bailaba mucha danza en ese tiempo, bars y música muy buena. Así que yo pasé mi vida entre ellos, por eso es que nosotros, los Castañeras, Reyes Castañeras, nos sentimos tanto orgullosos del 65 todos. Y todos hubiéramos dado la vida por el regimiento, especialmente mis hermanos que estuvieron luchando tanto, porque mis hermanos salieron vivos de Corea de milagro por las oraciones de mi padre. Bastantes veces que iba a morir y tuve un ángel protector alrededor de mí, salí vivo de milagro. Mis 5 hijos, 2 de ellos le sirvieron al ejército, uno de ellos fue infante de marina, el otro estaba en el Air Force y los otros 3 son muy buenos ciudadanos puertorriqueños y americanos y están orgullosos de lo que hicieron mi familia.
All right, that was Raúl Reyes Castañera and 4 brothers and a Borinqueneer father. Now I'm going to read a couple of comments. Let me see. I'm going to profile Cynthia. Cynthia Rosario. My father's name was Jaime Rosario and grandfather Regalado Rosario. And Flor Cookie Frau. Hi, Cookie. I honor all Borinqueneers. I represent my father, Borinqueneer Sergeant Guillermo Frau of Jayuya, who served in Korea. And let me see who else. Staff Sergeant Donato Rivera, 21 years, Army, 65th, World War II in Korea. I have his Congressional Medal of Honor. Maybe one more. My tío Jaime, Korean War, and my husband, a Vietnam veteran, father-in-law, World War II, all heroes to me. God bless all of our veterans. Thank you, Jenny, for commenting. All right, so let's move on. The legacy of family service also extended to continentals or non-Puerto Ricans. And in this case, you have a family. On your left is Colonel Otis Cole from Michigan. He served as the 65th Regimental Commander from 1934 to 1936. And his son, Glenn, a West Point graduate and a platoon leader, was serving in the 65th at the same time. While in Puerto Rico, Glenn met his future wife, the daughter of the 65th Regimental Surgeon, Colonel Lloyd Kefauver, also a West Point graduate. So in this case, it was a family affair. And another father-son service in the 65th was Brigadier General Winfred Skelton from Illinois, who served with the 65th as a lieutenant from 1923 to 1925. And later his son, Winfred Jr., born in Georgia, he served as K Company commander in Korea, and both were West Point graduates. Now, our next guest is going to be a Borinqueneer. So we're very honored to have him. Let me look for him here. Where are you? Oh, here you are. So these are cousins that served together in Korea. Hi, Victor.
Hello.
How are you?
So I'm doing fine. Greetings to all of you.
Hello.
My name is Victor Lopez Nieves, and I served in the Korean War and the Vietnam War. I'm part of the 65th Infantry Regiment, and I was an infantryman, a rifleman, and later on I became a mortarman. And at the end, the last 3 months, I was the non-commissioned officer in charge of the Fire Direction Center of a heavy mortar company. I went in as a private rifleman, and I came back as a master sergeant in 7. That was the highest rank for enlisted at that time. I was also part of the occupation troops in Germany in 1954. When I came back from Korea, most of the Puerto Ricans were back to the mountains where I'm from. I'm from the central part of the island. I'm a Jíbaro out of Naranjito, Puerto Rico. Most of the people, many of them went back to their home. Others went to Panama, and others stayed in Puerto Rico. Myself, they shipped me to Germany as part of the occupation troops. My military career extended for 29 years. At that time, I completed, that is, both a master's and a bachelor's and a master's degree while I was still on active duty. I was one sibling out of 10. I was born in 1928, and I will be 98 years old 3 months from now. So like I indicated, I served 29 years. Then I went to work for the Department of Mental Health, Mental Retardation of Texas, and I retired from that. And my last retirement, I served 28 years as a volunteer for the Armed Force, for the military at Brooke Army Medical Center. Well, today, I retired from everything. Practically, I'm doing just very little. I don't think I can do much at 98.
That's good. That's good. But at least you deserve that break. So let me ask you, because here we have your cousin served in the 65th and he was wounded, right? But you have other family members, right?
Yes, my cousin Gilberto Nieves Lopez. Remember that I'm Victor Lopez Nieves. He is Nieves Lopez. So he's a cousin. Actually, he's my friend. We got the same, my brother, that is. He has the same blood. So he was wounded at the Kelly outpost. He was left for dead at that time. I had been at Kelly myself, but I departed 2 weeks before he was wounded. And he was left behind the enemy lines for about 3 days. When the Americans returned to capture the mountain, he was still alive. It was a miracle that he was still alive. And he came back and he was sent back to the States. And he died about 5 years ago. Also, part of the family, extended family, we have Antonio Perez Colon, that was a Second War veteran. Bob Robert Pizzi, Air Force. Antonio Perez Jr., Army medical. Jose, what is it?
Segarra.
Jose Segarra, that was an officer in the Air Force. Luisito Perez Colon, it was regular Army.
And a woman, I see a woman there.
Well, the woman is just an ROTC young lady that is hoping to join the military. She's still in high school.
So we're going to move on. And this photo shows the 6 Anguera brothers from Isabela during World War II. But my research found 8 brothers serving from World War I through Korea. And 7 were Borinqueneers. And many of their sons also served. And here are 2 of Agustin's Borinqueneer sons who served in Korea and Vietnam. But I suspect that this impressive family has many more because it was a very large family and they also had sisters. So I think their children probably also did military service, but I don't have enough information. Next, we have the Rubio Mejia's brothers, all served during World War II. And they were the uncles of Captain Euripides Rubio, and who received a posthumous Medal of Honor during the Vietnam War. And another impressive family is the Rodriguez Borges brothers. Fernando, first sergeant with 22 years of service. His brother Narciso was killed in action after only being in Korea for 3 months. And half-brother Hector, who offered to escort the body back to Puerto Rico. 2 more brothers served, Jose and Chief Warrant Officer Miguel Ángel with 25 years of service, and a cousin, Master Sergeant Elliot Borges, who served for 22 years. So a lot of family service in this family. Let me now introduce the Cruz Rodriguez family of Juana Diaz with this quote from a letter sent to me by Marcelino, the gentleman in the center. I would like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to my mother, Asuncion Rodriguez, to give her a posthumous honor from her 5 sons who caused her enormous suffering and for withstanding the anxiety of the Korean War, where we were 5 sons fighting. I was the only one of 5 sons that later had 3 sons serving with pride in the army. None of us refused to go to combat. Marcelino passed away in 2008, but his son, Carlos, is here with us today from Virginia. Where are you? There you go. Hi, Carlos.
Hello, Noemi.
I have
Hello,
a lot of
everyone.
windows that I have to sort through at the bottom. So tell us something about your family service.
Sure. My father, Marcelino Cruz, remains the biggest patriot I have ever met. It was an honor for him to serve, and he took great pride fighting in the front lines. My grandfather, Juan Cruz, also a veteran, served in World War I. So this is where the legacy starts. After coming back from Korea, sadly, my uncle Filiberto passed away early in life. My father went on to work with the electric energy department for many years, and he also became a business owner. My uncle Ramon Cruz owned an auto repair shop after the war. My uncle Rafael became a well-respected lawyer in his hometown of Juana Diaz. My uncle Justo, he was the only one that had a full military career, 30 years. very proud as well. My dad, Marcelino, he had 9 children, and 3 of us ended up serving in the military as well. And if you can show the little.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. That was a good thing. I'm paying attention to what you're saying, and here I am looking for.
Appreciate
Here we
that.
go.
Oh, there we are. So there's my brother Jose Cruz. Um, he served with the Army for 3 years active and 9 years in the National Guard as a Dragon missile maintenance specialist. Jose is currently a police officer in Maryland. In the middle there is my brother Carlos Mario. Yes, we're both Carlos. I'm Carlos Felix. He's Carlos Mario. Carlos Mario served in the Air Force for 4 years, active as an Air Force security police officer, and 2 years in Air National Guard. He retired from law enforcement a few years ago. I served in the Army, active for 5 years as a military police officer with tours in South Korea and Iraq. I am also currently in federal law enforcement, going on 19 years now. And this is the legacy that we all treasure. And I would like to thank you, Noemi, for being the voice of the Borinqueneers for so many years. Your impact will never be forgotten. And I wanted to just finish with a quote that you're very familiar with and that I love to say. My father said this during the DC Armory in 2008 during one of your screening of the great Borinqueneers documentary. A mí, mi nación no me debe nada. Yo todavía le debo a mi nación. Thank you so much, Noemi.
Wait, translate that so people who don't speak Spanish understand.
For me, my nation doesn't owe me anything. I still owe my nation.
That's right. We met at the Washington, D.C. Film presentation, and it was very honored to have met him. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you for sharing your family service. Bye.
My pleasure. Take care.
So let me read a couple of quick comments. I'm going to read this one. My father, Ramon Morgado, Borinqueneer, 65th Infantry, Korea. Oh my God, there's so many comments. Thank you for your service. Many, I'll read this one. Dalton Johnson, thank you for your service. I agree. This one is my uncle Pablo Marrero Boches Yamp. He's going to be profiled later. Died in the Korean War. My father, Jose Marrero Boches Yamp, and my father-in-law, Jose Murati Ayabarrena, also served in Korea. Thank you all for your service. This is the Morales brothers, Eduardo and Juan, who served in World War II. And then we have the Sanchez Ortiz brothers. Both served in the same company, A, in World War II, Americo and Eusebio. The Nevares family. This is another large family from Corozal. 6 brothers serving in the military. Jacinto, Ismael, Victor, Felix, Herminio, and Mariano. 3 of them with the 65th, and 4 of them military retirees. Their cousin, First Sergeant Justino Nevares, served for 26 years, and Ismael's daughter, Lieutenant Colonel Olga Custodio, served for, in the Air Force for 24 years and made history as the first Latina pilot in the military and in commercial aviation. Awesome. And her autobiography just came out this year, and I recommend it. So our next guest, you're going to be very impressed. As you can see from all these names, right, in these 2 slides that I'm presenting, I think this family has the most Borinqueneers who served overall that have been identified to date. And to speak about them, I'm going to introduce genealogist and retired Sergeant Major Eric Hunt Benitez, who will elaborate. All right, Eric, you're on.
Hi, Noemi. How are you? Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody, to my family and friends. And I just want to thank everyone for allowing me to speak about my Benitez family in particular. And I have a big claim to fame today, and that is I have the most patriotic family in the history of Puerto Rico. And that's a big claim. But if you allow me a couple of minutes, I'll elaborate. So many people served in the military in my family, and I just wanted to understand how and why. In this first slide, you can see my uncles, Jesus Benitez, Epifanio Benitez, And Jesus was my inspiration for joining the military. He was a paratrooper in Vietnam, and that's why I became a paratrooper. Then I've got my cousins. My first cousin is Joe Benitez and Joshua Valcarcel, my brother Billy Joe, and my nephew Dylan, who's actually currently serving, and he's an Army Ranger. And I have myself when I was a lot skinnier and a lot younger in the top right corner. And then I have Colonel Jose Olazagasti, whose mother was a Benitez. So a lot of close family, and I was trying to understand why. So when I retired from the Army, I became a genealogist. And I dug deep as I could. And what I discovered was my fifth great grandfather was Jose Benitez. And he was one of the heroes of the Battle of 1797 when the British invaded Puerto Rico. He took 200 urban militia soldiers from Ponce and they rushed to the San Juan Harbor. And his mission was to defend the customs house, which was under direct fire from the British Navy. And the building was on fire. And despite the risk to himself, despite the risk to his soldiers, they succeeded in saving the building. So he was our hero. He was our inspiration. He got a commendation. And so his two sons, Carlos and Pedro, were also Army officers. Carlos received a medal for capturing revolutionaries and pirates. And Pedro actually took the smallpox vaccine all around Puerto Rico in the early 1820s, or in the early 1800s, and saved thousands of people. Carlos had a son, Regalado, who was awarded a knighthood and a medal from Queen Isabella of Spain. And Jose Gautier Benitez, grandson of Pedro, who you may know as a famous Puerto Rican poet, he was also an Army officer. So this was our core, the first ones. What I discovered in my research was that I have 118 documented Benitez family who all go back to Jose, all serving in the military. And out of that 118, 59 served in World War II as part of the Greatest Generation, and 9 were Borinqueneers. So the first two are the Guzman Garcia brothers, and they both served in World War I, Jose and Juan. Now, Jose actually died while he was serving during the Great Spanish Influenza pandemic. Private Carlos Benitez Gomez served in the 65th Infantry, Company K and L, the 3rd Battalion during World War II, and his uncle Enrique and his first cousin Luis also served. Then Corporal Jorge Simon Zequeira, this is a big branch of our family that was very patriotic. He was in the 65th Infantry in World War II. His father, Jorge or George, was in World War I also in Puerto Rico, and his brother had 4 sons also serving. And the Zequeiras are still serving today, a big military family, a branch of our Benitez family. Then we have the 6 Ruga Benitez brothers. Carlos Benitez Pomales, who was my second great grandfather's brother, Vieques Militia, 1898. 6 of his grandsons, all brothers, all served, but not in the 65th. Then Carlos Juan Charlie Benitez Piñero, he was the son of Juan Benitez Melendez. Juan was the brother of my great grandfather, and he was in the Merchant Marine in World War II, and 4 of his sons were also in the Merchant Marine in World War II. Now, Charlie left the Merchant Marine and joined the 65th and served overseas in France during World War II, and then he went back into the Merchant Marine. He actually died and drowned during his Merchant Marine service. Now, Charlie's the only one here today that received the Congressional Gold Medal for service in the 65th and the Congressional Gold Medal for service in the Merchant Marine in World War II. Then we have Staff Sergeant Cesar Roman Davilla, whose father was a Roman Benitez, and he served 20 years. He served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And in Korea, he was in Company C, 1st Battalion, 65th, awarded a Combat Infantry Badge, and these are some of his other medals. Then we have a 3-generation family, Corporal Carlos Manuel Benitez Ortiz, who was from Vieques. He served 10 years, honorably received a pension and a medical discharge. He was in the Puerto Rican Regiment of Infantry, Company K. His 3 sons, Hugo, who is now 90 years old, I just spoke to him, he served in the Army, and his brother Carlos served also in the Army and received a Purple Heart in the Korean War. And his son, or his brother, Wilfred, also served in the Army. Now, Wilfred's 2 children, Major Wilfred Benitez was an Air Force pilot, and his sister Nanette was a colonel in the United States Air Force. Corporal Eugenio Conde Benitez, also from Vieques, was in Service Company 65th Infantry in Korean War and was awarded a Combat Infantry Badge. He was a nephew of Carlos from the previous slide. And also from Vieques, Colonel Enrique Manuel Benitez Rexach. He served 34 years in the U.S. Army. He received 15 medals and commendations from the U.S. and other armies, and he inspired both of his sons to join, both graduates of West Point. Maurice was an Air Force pilot, and Henry was arguably our bravest Benitez family member. He was shot down during a bombing mission in World War II. He received the Distinguished Flying Cross, which was the second highest award for bravery, just below the Medal of Honor. And there's a plaque in his honor in France. And last, but definitely not least, although not part of my Benitez family, they're still my family. Regalado Rosario Malave was in World War I, Company D, and he's a cousin of mine through DNA. And interestingly, he's actually my wife's great-grandfather, because somos primos, right? Everybody's cousins in Puerto Rico. And then we have Corporal Jaime Rosario Martel, who we affectionately call Tio Jaime. He was in the Korean War, Company A, and the medical company, and he received a Combat Infantry Badge, a Combat Medic Badge, and a Purple Heart for being shot in the back. And luckily and thankfully, this is the year that he died. We did take Jaime to see the sneak preview of the Borinqueneers documentary, so he did get some final recognition just before he passed. And this is his son, Joel, next to me, and Noemi in the photo. So I know it's quick and brief. I only touched on about 45 out of the 118 Benitez family, but thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
Well, you're working on a book, aren't you?
Yes,
so be on the lookout.
I'm definitely working on a book on my Benitez family, because 118 is quite a remarkable number, just 9 generations removed from Jose, and I'm still counting, and I'm still finding more.
I know.
Thank you to all my family that served.
I need to have a genealogist in my family. Listen, I remember dancing salsa. Your Uncle Jaime used to love to dance salsa. I danced with him that day.
He definitely did. He had a great time that night.
Thank you, Eric, for all that. Oh my God, such an education. Thank you for all your family service. Bye.
Thank you very much.
The 3 Trujillo brothers and their stepbrother Luis from Ponce all served in the 65th in Korea. Pedro and Luis served during World War II, and Luis Enrique received the Purple Heart in Korea. And sadly, their stepbrother Luis died of his wounds in 1951. And next are the 4 Pagan Ayala brothers from Ponce, who all served with the 65th in Korea. 2 were officers. Rafael served for 18 years, retiring as a lieutenant colonel. He received the Bronx Star and is buried at Arlington Cemetery. And Benjamin received a Silver Star and after the war became a doctor. Finally, Samuel received a Bronx Star for meritorious service and later became a lawyer. Very accomplished family here. In this case, we have the father, Gregorio Perez, who served during World War II, his son, Luis, who served in Korea, and Luis's cousin, Juan Antonio, served with the 65th during World War II and Korea. And sadly, Juan Antonio was killed in action in 1950, less than 2 months after arriving Korea. Now, my next guest is retired Colonel Alberto Lugo, coming to us from Georgia with 25 years of service, and he's going to talk about the Borinqueneers and his family, his uncles. Here we go. There you go. Hi.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Hello, Colonel.
Good evening. My name is Colonel Alberto Lugo, U.S. Army retired. Today we honor all members of the Borinqueneers who then and now have brought so much honor to Puerto Rico and to the United States military. I would especially like to thank Noemi Figueroa, who has dedicated her life work to highlight the extraordinary service of the Borinqueneers, and to all others who are always bringing to our attention the Borinqueneers' distinguished record of service. We salute all of you. It is now an honor for me to share some of the legacy of service in my family. We honor Korean Borinqueneer, Corporal Pablo A. Marrero. He was my uncle, who was killed in action on April 27, 1951, during Operation Dauntless. Pablo was a member of Company K, 3rd Battalion. He was only 27 years old when he passed away, and Pablo, his only son, was born 9 days later. He is buried in the Puerto Rico National Cemetery. Technician 4th grade, Jose Amarrero Bochesian. He was also a Borinqueneer, but he was a Borinqueneer from the Second World War. He is my uncle, and he is a brother to Pablo. He served in Company M of the 65th Infantry and served from December of 1940 to December of 1945. He participated in 3 major campaigns, the Rome and Arno campaign, the Rhineland campaign, and the Central European campaign. He died August 2nd of 2018 at the age of 96. After the war, he became a lawyer. Next, Staff Sergeant William Freites. He is my father-in-law. He served during World War II. He served with Company I, 296 Infantry. He served from October of 1942 to January of 1946. He mainly served in Panama as an instructor in the Jungle School. He died April 3rd, 2005 at the age of 81. Next is my dear father, Sergeant First Class Joaquin A. Lugo. My father, like I stated before. Now, he served in the National Guard. He served in Company A, 295th Infantry. He was discharged in September of 1952, and he died July 19, 1996, at the age of 70. Now we're going to talk about Major General Jorge Arzola, U.S. Army retired. He is my uncle-in-law. He was commissioned to ROTC, and he's the reason, the inspiration of me joining ROTC and later the military. He served in the Special Forces during Vietnam. He later joined the reserves in Puerto Rico and at one time commanded the 65th Infantry Regiment in the reserves. He also later commanded all the units in the reserve in Puerto Rico, and he passed away in 2017 at the age of 76. Next is Sergeant First Class Jose Rivera, U.S. Army retired. He's my cousin-in-law. He served from February 4th, 1969 to March 1st, 1990. He worked for many generals and command groups in the U.S. and in Europe, and he is now fully retired in Puerto Rico. My next legacy of service is my brother, my dear brother, Sergeant First Class Edwin Lugo. He served from 1980 to the year 2000, mainly in airborne units with the 82nd Airborne Division and the 1st Special Forces Group. He served during the First Gulf War. He spent most of his career with the 82nd, like I stated before, and he was a qualified jump master. He contracted MS while he was in the service, and he died of the disease in April 9, 2016, at the age of 56. Next is Colonel Jorge Arzola Jr. He is the son of Major General Arzola. Originally served as a urologist in the United States Air Force, and later, when he left active duty, he joined the U.S. Army Reserves. He's a urologist in civilian practice, and he is still serving in the United States Army Reserves. Next is Captain Jacqueline Lopez, U.S. Navy Nurse Corps. She's my daughter-in-law. She is currently in charge of all the medical service units in the Marine Air Base of Iwakuni in Japan, and she is still serving in the Navy. I thank again Noemi Figueroa for the opportunity.
What about your service?
Okay, well, I am Colonel Alberto Lugo. I served for 25 years in the Army. I started my RB service, commissioned as a second lieutenant in artillery, detailed to the artillery, and later in transportation. In 1977, I was awarded a scholarship to attend dental school. And during the time that I was in dental school, 77 to 81, I was in the Medical Service Corps. In 1981, I joined the Dental Corps, and I served until my retirement. Later on, I went into private practice, so I forgot to say that I became a pediatric dentist and served in that capacity for 20 years in that capacity in the Army. And then went to private practice. And after 22 years of service in private practice, I went ahead and I retired, and I'm fully retired now.
Well, thank you all for your service.
Now,
You have quite a
I-
long family service. Oh my God.
I have one more comment, if you
Okay.
permit me. I thank again Noemi for the opportunity to research the legacy of service of my family. I am sure that I will continue to find others that have served that I did not include today. We thank all of them for their service. We thank all of you for your service and for helping to preserve the freedoms that we all enjoy. Thank you and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Alberto. You know something? This has become, it thought it would be a short program, but there's so much military service, and we want to be able to honor them all, that I am so impressed by the service of all these families, and yours in particular as well, your family. Thank you. Thank you so much for participating. Good night.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good night.
All right, bye. The Estela brothers, serving in Korea, they meet during a R&R break on June 10th, 1952. Only the one in the center was a Borinqueneer, but the other two were serving at the same time in Korea in other units. And the one on the left retired from the military, and the one on the right was a POW with the 19th Infantry Regiment, and two other brothers below served during World War II, the Estela brothers. This is the Claudio brothers, Claudio Cruz, Angel, and Jesus. Angel got the Purple Heart in Korea, and Jesus retired and served in the Korea and Vietnam Wars. Then we have our next guest. Actually, it's two guests. Now, many of these Borinqueneer retirees served in multiple wars, but a significant number served in all three wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And this is Sergeant First Class Restituto Lorana Licea, who served in all three wars. And he's a native son from Manatee with 2 Bronx stars. And representing him today, we have two guests, his daughter, Dalila Loran Parker, and his grandson, retired Navy Lieutenant Commander Josh Devers. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Thank you, Noemi, for having me. And hello to all the Borinqueneer family, my new family. I just want to speak just a little bit about my father. Of course, like you mentioned, he's from Manatee, Puerto Rico, from a family of 12 siblings. And from my understanding, he was the only one who served. He served, like you mentioned, in World War II, Korea, and 2 tours to Vietnam. He served 29 years. This was his career. My father was a Borinqueneer, served in Korea 1950 to 1951. Now, he never spoke about being in the Korean War. So we had no idea growing up as, 5 siblings altogether. We had no idea. I researched his military service and received confirmation that not only was he in the 65th Infantry Regiment in Korea, but also in World War II. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about the kind of man my father was and what he expected of his 5 children. First of all, our parents ensure that we retain the Puerto Rican culture. Since all of us were growing up, we spent all our years in the United States. We spoke Spanish at home and English outside the home. He made sure of that. He was very passionate that we live a life of service to our country and to others. This began our legacy of family service. My father's favorite quote was one from President Kennedy back in the 60s, where he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." He did not let us forget that. He set an example for us to follow in his footsteps: hard work, devotion, integrity, and loyalty in Christian faith. He reminded us to never forget and to never give up, but not forget our Puerto Rican roots. My father not only had an impact on his 5 children, but also on all his grandchildren. And I also had a strong mother, and she held the family together during all those deployments of his. He retired in 1972, and he was heavily involved in his community and his church. He worked security services, Habitat for Humanity, and he was involved in the Spanish Baptist Church and First Christian Church, and he preached when needed. He also started taking college courses at that time. He was a man that was a friend to all, and you could always count on him for anything. My father passed in 1997 at the age of 73, due to Agent Orange. I honor my father on Veterans Day and all that have served and wore the nation's cloth. I will always carry with me those values that he instilled in me, and I'm very proud to be Puerto Rican. My family is blessed beyond measure to have this Borinqueneers. My father, I am so proud, and I still in the researching process to find out more about the things he did. So I know that we have not forgotten, and we won't forget. We had a wonderful life. And
thank you. We're going to have to move on, Dalila, because we're running really long. So
yes,
I want to give Josh an opportunity. Thank you. Ma'am. Josh, go, Josh.
Go ahead, Josh.
I'll keep it brief. Noemi, thank you so much. Good evening to everyone. I got to tell you, I'm in awe of the years of experience, the stories, the men and women that have come, before me, through the 65th, but also through the entire military. I think it was Carlos Cruz earlier who called you the voice of the Borinqueneers, and I fully agree. As for myself, I was greatly inspired by my grandfather to serve in the military, though I think I might have been the black sheep of the family as I joined the Navy, not the Army as the rest of my family did. But I took the oath of office after college in 2000, served for 25 years as a naval intelligence officer, and then just retired in June of this year. I was stationed in Asia, the Middle East, really all over the globe, and was also combat deployed to Iraq. In all, I've lived or have visited well over 50 countries during my time in the Navy. And like I said, I'm incredibly thankful for my grandfather's influence and for the many sacrifices of those who created the many opportunities and the successes that I've enjoyed today, most notably the men and women mentioned here tonight. I continue to serve just in a different capacity now as I'm a civilian. I'm now an offensive cyber operations and intelligence planner working for Booz Allen Hamilton at the Navy's Fleet Cyber Command here in Fort Meade, Maryland. And I'm thrilled again, just for the honor to speak to so many wonderful, patriotic Puerto Ricans. It is an honor to see so many of these wonderful people. And again, just thank you for the opportunity, Noemi.
No, thank you all for your service. And I know that Josh was raised by his grandparents, so he was deep into that Puerto Rican culture, the Puerto Rican food, the Puerto Rican everything, right?
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. I mean, raised to understand Puerto Rican culture, food, the language, everything. Even though I was raised, completely in North Carolina, I certainly have lived a life of a Puerto Rican.
Gracias. All right, let's move on. Next are the 2 Lugaro brothers who served in Korea, and Saul requested that Adalin, who was he was serving in Company L. He asked the chaplain if he could bring him into the same company, and they did end up serving in Company M together. Then we have the Lamboglia Alvarez family, and they were from Guayama, and it began with Jose, a lieutenant with the 373rd Infantry Regiment. In 1919, Mariam and Jose served in Korea. Jose did 20 years service and received the Bronx Star for Meritorious Service and the Purple Heart. And the youngest brother served in the Air Force in Vietnam, and Jose's son served in Kuwait. Now, my next guest is retired Lieutenant Colonel Edwin Vargas, coming to us from Lajas, Puerto Rico, who was inspired by his Borinqueneer father, retired Staff Sergeant Victor Vargas of Yauco. And not only was a recipient of the Purple Heart, but he was also one of those veterans of 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Edwin.
Hello, Noemi. Thank you so very, this is wonderful what you're doing. And I thank you for the opportunities you've given me to meet so many of the Borinqueneers while here in Puerto Rico. As you very well know, I didn't learn about the Borinqueneers from my dad. He was very quiet when it came to the Borinqueneers. In any case, my dad had a break in service. He served in World War II in the Pacific in Okinawa with the 7th Infantry Division. He didn't have a problem talking about Okinawa. As a matter of fact, during my childhood, he had 3 dogs. Every one of them was called Oki. All 3 of them, he called them Oki. And when that young lady was talking just a few minutes ago, Loran, it brought back flashbacks because my dad raised us in a similar manner. Inside Spanish, outside English. My sister and I were both brought up very similar, in a very similar manner. Anyway, he had a break in service and he joined to serve with the 65th Infantry and serve in Korea. He never talked about Korea. I didn't learn a thing about Korea, about his service in Korea, not from him. And then after that, he served in Vietnam. He didn't have a problem talking about Vietnam. I found him one day when I came from school dancing a jig. It looked like an Irish jig in front of the TV. And it's sad to say, but he was celebrating the death of the commanding general, the one who had been the commander of the 65th Infantry while in Korea. And that's when I found out a little bit about his service in Korea. And I said, Dad, what are you doing? And he says, that SOB passed away. He died. What are you talking about? I don't remember his name right now, but he says he walked in front of the La Hélice of an aircraft, and he died. He's dead. And I'm celebrating his death because he was responsible for so many deaths in Korea. He considered him responsible for the death of so many of his friends, and he carried that with him. And I remember times when he got flashbacks, and my mom would grab him and take him to the room and send myself and my sister to our rooms so she could handle him. And we just didn't understand. But it had to do with Korea.
But it inspired you yourself to join the military. It's amazing.
It did.
Tell us something about your career.
He was my hero. Just one more point. When he passed away, before he passed, he didn't want the plaque, the military plaque. He made his own plaque. And all it says is Company B, 65th Infantry. That's all it says. His name, Company B, 65th Infantry. Anyway, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Edwin Vargas. I was born in Lajas, Puerto Rico, and I was raised as an Army brat. I left Puerto Rico when I was 2.5 years old. I came back when I was almost 15. Went to high school, went to 9 different schools before I came here. And finally, when I graduated from college, I became a second lieutenant. I went to ROTC. I became a second lieutenant. My Army career started in Fort Jackson because unfortunately I started out as an OBV2. I didn't know whether I wanted to stay or not. So I settled for 2 years and then found out I liked it. And I had to fight to stay for longer and then become a regular Army officer. I went to airborne school. I went to Ranger school. I was an infantry officer, which ticked my dad off. He didn't want me to go infantry. He didn't want me to go airborne. When I went to Ranger school, that really ticked him off. He didn't want me to go Ranger, but he gave me a lot of good advice. I ended up going to Korea. He gave me some more good advice.
So how many total years did you end up serving?
I ended up serving 22 years. I ended up going to the Army, sent me to get a master's degree when I was a major. I had my last assignment. I'll jump right to that. Was as the Army officer in working for the embassy in Honduras in the Mill Group. I loved the career. I loved it, but I served only 20 years.
All right.
Served only 20 years.
Thank you so much for sharing your family service. And we have to move on. It's over an hour now, and we still have some more guests. Thank you, Colonel. Oh, this is the O'Neill family next, a very Puerto Rican name. And we have the father, Jose, who served in World War I, and the two sons who served in Korea, Juan and Carlos, in the same company. And then we have the Santini brothers from Ay Bonito, who served in World War II and Korea, and both retired from the military. Juan earned a Bronze Star and the Purple Heart, and Luis was an officer and a Company I commander, earning 2 Bronze Stars for meritorious service. He also served in Vietnam. And my last guest for tonight is retired Lieutenant Colonel Bart Soto, coming to us from Georgia, who will speak to us about his Borinqueneer father, retired Staff Sergeant Gabriel Soto Rivera, a World War II and Korean War and Vietnam War veteran. So he's one of those three war service Borinqueneers. Hi, Bart. Welcome.
Hi, Noemi. Well, wanted to talk about my father first. It's Staff Sergeant Gabriel Soto Rivera. And here is a picture of him when he started his career as a private in World War II. Here he is in Panama in 1945 with the 295th Infantry Regiment. Here's a picture of Dad in Japan when he was sent to Korea. Here he looks like R&R in Japan with one of his friends. He's on the left and on that little bike with looks like a Japanese child. Here's Dad when he came back from Korea in 52, late 52. He was a corporal then, and you see it on his epaulets up here. It says Korea, and he was a cadre man and was involved in giving basic training to Puerto Rican troops that were being sent to Korea. This is Dad when he was in Germany in 1956 with the 6th Cavalry Regiment. This is one of my favorite pictures of him that a photographer made. Another picture of Dad in Germany in 1958. Here he was the 11th Airborne. Dad was not airborne, but he was in the division, and it was an armored infantry battalion in Germany in 1958 at the time. When I decided to go airborne and during my career, he thought I was insane to jump out of a perfectly good airplane, but I did it. This is a picture of Dad with the 1st Cavalry Division back in Korea again in 1962. So 10 years later, he was right back in Korea again, holding a guitar. He's just goofing off because Dad couldn't play any musical instrument. And here I am with Dad. This is 1981. I was on leave from the Armor Officer Advanced Course. I was a captain then. You can see my airborne wings there, about one of the few medals I have. And it was Christmas, and I convinced Dad, let's put on our uniforms. Dad was retired, and I convinced him to put on that Army green in the heat of Puerto Rico. We sat in the front porch there and had our picture taken. It's the only picture I have, a good one, with Dad, both of us in our Army green uniform. And you see a Dad's patch, if you can make it out, it's the 1st Infantry Division when he was in Vietnam. That was the patch he wore. And that's it. This is my picture when I retired. I Began my career in 1976, ROTC grad from the University of Puerto Rico ROTC program in Rio Piedras. Colonel Lugo, who you had on earlier, was one of the cadets that trained me. And he's my compadre now. I owe him a great debt for fantastic training and leadership example. I started as an armor branch, tanks, and I served from 1976 to 2003. And I served giving basic training in 2 different tank battalions, and also in staff at various levels, with my last position being in Headquarters Forces Command. I was a contracting officer.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your family service and for sharing about your father. And I'm just going to thank you, Bart, and I'm going to move on.
Thank you, Noemi, for this wonderful presentation you put together.
My last slide of veterans is this family, who was a last-minute addition, and I just had to fit it into the presentation because it shows 4 generations of military service. Lieutenant Colonel Juan Antonio Munera, Sr. of Juana Diaz, served in the Provisional 373rd Regiment, which later became the basis of the Puerto Rico Reserve, and he retired after 20 years of service. And his Borinqueneer sons, Antonio Jr. and Hector, both served in Korea. Hector in the service company, and Antonio was an officer. He was a G Company G commander in Korea, and he received the Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. His son, Antonio III, was a decorated Vietnam veteran with 2 tours of service in Vietnam. And finally, Antonio IV, who sent me all this information last night, participated in Iraq and Kosovo, becoming the commanding general of the U.S. Army ROTC Cadet Command. And he retired with 33 years of service as a major general. So we've had representation from private up to general. Amazing. So we're not going to do the roundtable discussion because we have run out of time, unfortunately. I'm so sorry. The guests that were waiting to participate in this, maybe we can do another session in the future, but this is becoming too long, unfortunately. So we are going to go into what is the total number of years served by those that were profiled here today. For any of you who were crazy enough to tally it all up, okay? You're sending me the figures, but it's not matching what I have. Okay, so I do not. It's time to the reveal. This is the photo. Sergio is very close. Where are you, Sergio? 1434. I have 1433. So you are the grand prize winner because one of us made a mistake, but your figure came up the closest to the final tally. So make sure that, thank you. Yes, congratulations, Sergio. So make sure that you send me an email at contact@borinqueneers.com with your contact information, your address, your phone number, so that I can send you the book, the Borinqueneers, A Visual History of the 65th Infantry Regiment. And of course, for those of you who want to learn more about this regiment, visit our website at borinqueneers.com, where you will find articles, photo gallery of hundreds of Borinqueneer photos containing audio and video clips and interviews. You can buy or rent our documentary film or purchase other products. We have a Christmas sale going on right now until January 2nd. For those of you with Borinqueneers in your family, please register them in our database if they're not already there by visiting the resources section of our website and filling out the 65th Infantry Census Form, along with proof of the veteran's 65th service and high-resolution archival photos to add them to our Borinqueneers photo gallery as a way to pay tribute to their service. And in conclusion, there are many jobs in this world that are difficult and no one wants to do. Many are considered physically demanding, dangerous, or require immense mental stress, such as firefighters, construction workers, and military personnel. I certainly would not want to have to pick up a weapon to fight an enemy, and I am relieved that there are others willing to do so. But the nature of their commitment to sacrifice and service has led me to believe that for many, military service is a calling. There were many profiled today here that never even saw combat, yet they served, ready to do so if necessary. And today's program shows that Puerto Rico has a long and proud legacy of military service that it should be very proud of. I know I am. And on this Veterans Day, I personally want to thank all my guests and for all my veterans for your service. Y que vivan los Borinqueneers. Thank you for joining me. Ciao.